Good morning everyone. This is Dr. R. Lakshmi from SNH Department of St. Peter's Engineering College. As you all know, in this semester I am going to handle for you the subject Probability and Statistics and Complex Variable. From the title of the subject itself, it is very clear that the subject includes three branches of mathematics, right? It includes probability, it includes statistics, it also includes complex variables, right? So before we discuss about the concept of probability in this class, let us have a brief review of the different basics of the probability. As you all know, probability means a chance, is a branch of mathematics which deals with or which studies about the influence of the chance, right? So it is more prominent it is more useful, or its usage is more prominent in various fields of in engineering, in insurance, in statistics and all. The usage of probability is very prominent, right? So to define or to say it mathematically, it is the mathematical measure of the occurrence or the non-occurrence of an event under discussion. If we deal with an event of a random experiment and we try to quantify the occurrence or the non-occurrence of the event, what is that quantity of the measure is called as the probability of that event, right? So let me now briefly explain you the basic terminology that that are useful to us while discussing the different concepts of our subject. And before that, let me first tell you what are the contents that we have in our subject. Total we have 5 units in the syllabus. The first 2 units deal with completely probability topics. The third unit to deal with the statistics. It deals with the test of hypothesis. The 4th and 5th units are about the complex variables. In the complex variables, we are going to learn about how the analytic functions can be constructed by using the Milne-Hamilton theorem. What are the Cauchy-Riemann equations? How they can be used for checking the analyticity of the given function. How the Laurent and Maclaurin series of the given complex function can be determined. What is the integration of the complex variable functions done? Likewise, we have different topics of complex analysis, complex variables that we deal with in the last 2 units. So total 5 units, out of which first 2 units you are going to learn about probability, 3rd unit about statistics, 4 and 5 units are completely about the complex variables, right? Now let us have a brief review of the different terminology that we come across while dealing with or solving the problems from probability. First and foremost, let us see what is an experiment. Let us see what is an experiment. As you all know, because in your first year you might have learned in doing many experiments in your physics and chemistry subject. Just like that, an experiment means a physical action or the process that can be observed and the result can be noted. So any of the physical action, if we can observe it and the result can be noted, we call it an experiment. For example, suppose we fire a missile or we throw a stone upwards, right? When we throw a stone upwards, what happens? Due to the force of gravitation, we are sure that it will definitely fall down, right? The process of throwing up and coming down can be observed, and the result is throwing of the stone is the process and the result is falling it down. So similarly, we can also have the tossing of a coin and throwing of a die. Similarly, there are so many other examples we can come across in our daily life regarding the experiments. Now let us see What are the different types of experiments? We have two types of experiments, namely deterministic, the second one probabilistic. We have two types of experiments known as deterministic and probabilistic experiment. As an example to this deterministic experiment, let me tell you about throwing of a stone upwards. When a stone is thrown upwards, due to the force of gravitation, we are sure that it will fall down. Right? That is called as the deterministic experiment, because before the conduction of the experiment, before we throw the experiment itself, before we throw the stone upwards, we can expect what happens after throwing the stone upwards. Right? So before the conduction of the experiment, if we are able to predict what happens after the experiment, if we can expect the result of the experiment with certainty, without or before the conduction of the experiment, such an experiment is called as deterministic experiment or predictable experiment. Predictable experiment. And the other experiments are called as, like if the result cannot be expected prior to the conduction of the experiment, such experiments are called as probabilistic or undeterministic. Undeterministic. What happens in this probabilistic or undeterministic deterministic also can be called unpredictable experiments. Before the conduction of the experiments, we are not unable to expect what is the result of the experiment, or otherwise we can also say that we are not able to predict what is the result that we are going to obtain after the experiment with certainty. Such experiment is called as undeterministic or probabilistic experiment. As an example, we can consider tossing of a coin. When we toss a coin, we are not sure whether the tail will come up or the head will come up. There is an equal chance of getting head or tail. Right? So we cannot definitely or with certain say that only the head will come up or only the tail will come up. Such an experiment is called as undeterministic or probabilistic experiment. Right? Now let us move on our discussion to the random experiment. Random experiment. So a random experiment means an experiment, it comes under the category of this probabilistic, or under the other name of this probabilistic can also be called as the random experiment. So what happens here is, when an experiment is performed under similar conditions, we'll have a set of possible outcomes, right, where each outcome is considered to be the result of the experiment. And suppose if we want to tell about any of the experiment whether occurs or not, it would be definitely one among all the possible, any result of the experiment is out of one among all the possible outcomes of the random experiment, right? I repeat once again. A random experiment means a probabilistic experiment wherein what happens is, when an experiment is conducted under similar conditions, giving us a set of possible outcomes, any result is known to be one of the possible outcomes of the experiment. Then such an experiment is called as a random experiment. For example, tossing a coin, throwing a die are the two random experiments. Or otherwise, another example let me quote. We have a deck of 52 cards, suppose. If you want to draw a card from that, the card drawn may be of any type from the out of the 52 cards. And once again, a probabilistic situation occurred. Such an experiment is called as a random experiment. Right? Now, let us move on our discussion to a trial. Let us see what is a trial. Any single performance of an experiment. If we perform an experiment one time, any single performance is known as the trial of an experiment. And next, let us see what is an outcome of the experiment. It is simply the result of the experiment. It is simply the result of the experiment. Next, let us see what is the sample space. What is the sample space? Let me give an example. Suppose we toss a coin. If we toss a coin, what happens when we toss a coin? We may get either the head or the tail. There is an equal chance, right? So the result of getting head and also the result of getting tail, both will include the sample space. So what is the sample space? It is the collection of all the possible outcomes of a random experiment. So if tossing of a coin is a random experiment, then the sample space S equals to the set of all possible outcomes, getting of head and getting of tail, and its elements. The elements of the sample space are always called as the sample points. So are you clear with the sample space and the sample points? Sample space means it is a set consisting of all the possible outcomes of a random experiment. In tossing a coin, the sample space is H, T. And the elements of the sample space is always called as the sample points. As another example, suppose we throw a die. Is another random experiment. What happens? Any of the number 1 to 6 may come up. Right? So how many possible outcomes are there? There are total 6 possible outcomes. We may get 1, we may get 2, we may get 3. Likewise, we may get 4 or 5 or 6. We have total 6 possible outcomes. So there are 6 sample points in the sample space when we throw a die. When we throw a die, we have the sample space consisting of 6 sample points. Namely, the elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. This is about the sample space. Now, after the sample space, we deal with the event. Let us see what is an event. So as we told previous to this sample space, an outcome which is the result of a random experiment, it sometimes can also be called as an event of the random experiment. The event can also be defined as any subset of the sample space. For example, when S is equal to H, T, where H is head and T is a tail, event means getting head is an event, getting tail is also an event. So H is a subset of S, T is also a subset of S. So any subset of the sample space of a random experiment can be called as an event. An event. Right? So all the possible outcomes of a random experiment may constitute events also. Right? And after this, we separate the events to 2 classes. We have elementary events. We have elementary events. Also we have compound events. So we are classifying events to 2 types. We have both the elementary events and compound events. Elementary events means the individual events which cannot be further broken down. The elementary events which cannot be further broken down are called as elementary events. Compound events means the events which can be broken down and which are not elementary. As an example, in throwing a die, the event of getting 1, the event of getting 2, similarly the events of getting 3, 4, 5, 6 constitute elementary events. Compound event means, in the same example, when we throw a die, as an example to this compound events, suppose E is the event of getting an odd number. This event can be split into 3 parts. As there are 3 odd numbers in the sample space of throwing a die, this event E of getting an odd number can be divided into the 3 events E1, E2, E3, where E1 is the event of getting the first odd number 1, E2 is the event of getting the second odd number 3, E3 is the event of getting the third odd number 5. So here the event of getting an odd number is constituting 3 events of getting 1 or 3 or 5. So this event of getting an odd number become the compound event. So clear? Are you clear with the types of the events? The elementary and the compound events? Right. Now let us move on our discussion to the union, intersection and the complements of the events. Suppose we have two events E1 and E2. The union of the two events is defined as E1 union E2. Also can be written as, this also can be written as E1 or E2. This union of the event consists of all those outcomes which are either in the event E1 or in the event E2. So the union E1 union E2 is the set of all the outcomes consisting of the elements of E1 or the elements of E2. Right? Similarly, the intersection of the events is denoted by E1 intersection E2 or E1 and E2. Again, it is a set of all the outcomes which consists of both the outcomes from E1 and E2. Similarly, when E is an outcome, its complement is denoted by E bar or E power C or E dash. So E bar is the complement of the event E. It consists of all those events which are not the elements of the event E. So the elements of E bar are the elements which are not in E. So we have seen what is the union, what is the intersection and what is the complement of the event. Now let us see what are called exhaustive events. What are called exhaustive events? Suppose we have a deck of 52 cards and we have to draw a card from the given deck. In how many ways we can draw one card from the 52 ways? It is very clear that the number of ways one card can be drawn from the available 52 cards equals to 52 C1. It is 52 ways. It is 52 ways and therefore this 52 forms the total exhaustive events corresponding to the experiment. So to define in general the exhaustive events means it is the total number of possible outcomes of the random experiment. Suppose we toss a coin. There will be a head or a tail possible outcomes. So how many possible outcomes are there? 2. So the total exhaustive events are 2. Similarly, when we throw a die, there will be 6 possible exhaustive events. After these exhaustive events, let us consider what are called mutually exclusive events. Let us see what are mutually exclusive events. Mutually exclusive events. Suppose we have a set of events. We say that the set of events are mutually exclusive if the happening of one event prevents the happening of all the other events. Right? If the happening of an event prevents the happening of all the remaining events, then we call the set of events the mutually exclusive events. For example, in tossing a coin. Right? The event E1 is the event E1 is equal to coming up of head. The event E2 is coming up of tail. Right? Clearly the two events E1 E2 are mutually exclusive because if E1 happens, E2 will not happen. If E2 happens, E1 will not happen. It means the happening of the one prevents the happening of other. Right? That is about the exclusive events. Now, let us consider the other equivalent term of the probability, equally likely events. Let us see what are called equally likely events. For example, when we toss a coin, there is an equal chance of getting head or tail. There is no reason to expect head. There is no reason that, only the head will come up and no tail will come up. And there is no reason to expect only tail, and we cannot say that the tail will come and head will not come. So if there is no reason for expecting an event to occur rather than the others, then we say that the events are equally likely. Now let us see what are the favorable events. What are the favorable events? Suppose E is an event of a random experiment, right? E is an event of the random experiment. If there are few events which are favorable to E, those are called as the favorable events to the given event of the random experiment. Sometimes these favorable events can also be called as successes. Okay, so favorable to the event of even number, the event of getting 2, 4 or 6 are also sometimes called as the successes, and all the remaining events which are not favorable to the event of getting even number are called as the failures. The failures. Otherwise, if the events do not if the event is not favorable to a particular event, they are called as the failures. So corresponding to the event of getting an even number, the successes are events of getting 2, 4 and 6, and the failures are the events of getting the odd numbers 1, 3 or 5. Now let us see what is the classical definition. What is the classical definition of probability? Let us see what is the classical definition of the probability. Okay, suppose there are n mutually exclusive and equally likely events. Mutually exclusive and equally likely events. Then corresponding to an event E, for an event E, if there are m favorable events, m events are favorable, then the probability of the event E is equal to the number of favorable events m by the total number of events n. So if E is an event of an experiment, the probability of the experiment is determined by using the ratio m by n, where m is the number of favorable events to E and n is the total number of exhaustive events, right? And every time we should remember that the probability of an event, if it is 0, we say that the probability of the event is an impossible event. It is an impossible event. If we calculate the probability of the event and we found that it is equal to 1, the event is called as a sure event, right? Similarly, in terms of this definition, P of E equal to m by n, we also can define the probability of E bar. As we all know, E bar is the complement of E. So probability of E bar become the probability of the non-occurrence of the event E. Because there are m favorable cases to the event E, the non-favorable cases to E will be total n minus m out of the total exhaustive. If m are favorable, the unfavorable events are total n minus m by the number of exhaustive events is n. So the probability of the non-occurrence of the event is n minus m by n, which is 1 minus m by n, also can be written 1 minus probability of E. With this we can write P of E plus P of E bar is equal to 1. So the probability of an event E, the probability of occurrence of an event plus the probability of the non-occurrence of the event is always equal to 1. Right? Now let us move on our discussion to axioms of the probability. Let us see what are the different axioms of the probability. We have three axioms. The first axiom states that 0 is less than or equal to P of E less than or equal to 1. It means that the probability of any event of the random experiment can never be less than 0 or can never be more than 1. But it always lies from 0 to 1. And the second axiom states that the probability of the sample space is equal to 1. As we all know, the sample space is the collection of all the possible outcomes. Right? So it includes all the possible events of the experiment. And for that sample space, the probability is always equal to 1. The probability of the sample space is never more than the value 1. The third axiom states that if A and B are exclusive events, then the probability of A union B is equal to, if AB are exclusive events, probability of A union B is equal to probability of A plus probability of E. This is called the axiom of union, right? And therefore we write here the rule for P of A union B equal to P of A plus P of B is AB are mutually exclusive events. These three are known as the axioms of the probability. The knowledge of these axioms is very much important while solving problems on the probability. Right? Now based on the probability, the axioms of the probability, let us try to solve two examples. Right? Let us see the first example. What is the probability? What is the probability that there are 53 Tuesdays in a leap year? Let us solve this. Right? So in a leap year means total. We know that the leap year means it is 366 days. When we divide 366 days into weeks, we get this 52 into 7. Total 364 plus 2 days are remaining. So extra 2 days are remaining after 52 weeks of the days. After 52 weeks of the leap year, 2 days are remaining. So in the 52 weeks, we'll having total 52 Tuesdays anyhow. To have the 53rd Tuesday, we have to depend on the extra 2 days. Now let us see what are the possible cases of this extra 2 days to happen. So for the 2 days, favorable cases, let us consider the cases favorable to the extra 2 days. Favorable cases. For the extra 2 days, the favorable cases are the 2 days may be Monday, Tuesday. They may be Tuesday, Wednesday. They may be Wednesday, Thursday. They may be Thursday, Friday. They may be Friday, Saturday. Or they may be Saturday, Sunday. There are total 7 possibilities, 7 exhaustive cases. So n is equal to 7. These are the 7 exhaustive events for the extra 2 days of the leap year, so that we get 53 Tuesdays. Now out of these 7 cases, look at the first 2. They include Tuesday. So the 53rd Tuesday is either the first possibility Monday, Tuesday, or the second one Tuesday, Wednesday. So there are 2 favorable events for the 53rd Tuesday to happen in the leap year. So we get here the favorable cases m equal to 2 for the leap year to have 53 Tuesdays. And therefore the probability of the event E, if event is to have 53 Tuesdays in a leap year, it is equal to m by n, which is equal to 2 by 7. Yes? Are you clear with the sum? Now let me explain another problem based on the same. Suppose in a classroom, in a class there are 6 boys and 5 girls, and a committee of 3 has to be selected. A committee of 3 has to be taken. A committee of 3 has to be taken. Then what is the probability? Find the probability of choosing 3 boys from the classroom. So for the committee, a committee of 3 has to be chosen. So what is the probability that the 3 that we choose for the committee from the class are boys? So let us see what are the total exhaustive cases first. As there are total in the classroom 6 boys and 5 girls, total of the class is equal to 6 plus 5. It is total 11 people are there in the class. So out of these 11 people, a committee of 3 has to be selected. So the number of ways to choose 3 out of the 11 is equal to 11C3. Right? Similarly now, to choose the committee of 3 from only boys, because there are 6 boys, favorable to the selection of 3 boys from the 6, the number of possible ways. Now the number of ways to choose 3 boys from the 6 boys, 3 boys from the 6 boys is equal to 6C3. So out of the 6 boys, the 3 boys can be chosen in 6C3 ways. These are the cases favorable, denoted by M. And out of the total 11 people in the class, committee of 3 can be chosen in 11C3 ways, gives the total exhaustive cases. Therefore, the required probability to form the committee of 3 boys is equal to 6C3 by 11C3. When we calculate this 6C3 by 11C3 by using the formula, it is 6C3, 6 factorial by 6 minus 3, 3 factorial into 3 factorial upon 11C3. It is 11 factorial by 11 minus 3, it is 8 factorial into the 3 factorial. When we cancel the 3 factorial and simplify, whatever we get here will become the number determining the probability of 3 boys, the committee of 3 boys to be selected from the classroom. Right? I hope you all understood.